where something just doesn't sit right. Nothing obvious is wrong. You can't really explain it, but there's a part of you that notices it anyway. And most of the time, we move past it, but sometimes it lingers. And that's usually where things start. Most people don't say it out loud right away. They don't even acknowledge it. They walk into a room and something shifts, and they look around, check the faces, see nothing obviously wrong, and just file it away. They get off a phone call and something doesn't sit right, and they tell themselves they're probably just tired. Or they're around someone who seems completely fine on the surface, and yet something in them quietly is stepping back. And then later, sometimes a lot later, they think, I knew something was off. That feeling has a lot of names. It's a bad vibe, a gut feeling, something's in the air, an instinct that you just couldn't quite justify. Whatever you call it, it's one of the most common experiences people reach out to talk to me about. And it's one of the least understood because it doesn't just come with an explanation attached. It just arrives. Welcome to More Than We See. I'm Natalie. And today we're talking about that feeling. What it actually is, where it tends to come from, and what to do with it when it shows up. Which, if you're anything like the people I work with, is probably more often than you're letting on. So here's what I find interesting about this experience. It shows up everywhere, and I mean everywhere. So let me start with one that I think most people are going to recognize immediately, kind of an example. So a few years ago, I was on the phone with one of my closest friends, someone I've known long enough that I can read her like people can read a room. And we were having what looked like a completely normal conversation. Just catching up, laughing, talking about nothing in particular, like, about the weather or something like friends do, except something felt off to me. Nothing wrong exactly, just not complete. Like there was a conversation happening underneath the one that we were actually having. She was fine. She said she was fine. Nothing she said was untrue, but something in me kept quietly registering she's leaving something out here. I didn't push. I just stayed in the conversation and paid attention to what that feeling was without making it bigger than it was. And sure enough, a few weeks later, she had told me what was actually going on. Something that she wasn't ready to tell me at that point. She wasn't lying to me. She was protecting herself until she felt ready. And my job in that moment wasn't to call her out or demand more or that she give more to me. It was just to notice and stay present with what I noticed without turning it into something urgent. That's the version of this feeling that lives between people. And it's probably one of the most common places in how that feeling shows up. But it also can show up in spaces. Like you walk into a house and something shifts before you're even looking around. You're in a meeting and the energy in the room changes when a certain topic comes up or when a certain person walks in the room. And you're somewhere that everyone else seems perfectly comfortable, and yet something in you is quietly kind of stepping back. And then later, again, sometimes much later, you think, I knew something was off. Whatever you called it in that moment, whatever name you gave it, it was there. It just arrives. So let's talk about what's actually happening when something does feel off. Because there are a few genuinely different things that this experience can be. And knowing the difference matters. So the first possibility is it's your nervous system doing sophisticated work. Like your body is processing an enormous amount of information at any given moment. Most of it is below conscious awareness. Like micro expressions, shifts in tone, changes in energy in the room, environmental details that your conscious mind hasn't cataloged yet. Your system takes all of that in and sometimes delivers it not as a thought, but as a feeling, a sense of wrongness before you really know what's wrong. And this is actually your perception working really well. It's not anxiety, it's not oversensitivity, it's your system being faster than your thinking brain, which honestly, that's how it often works. When this is what's happening, the feeling tends to be quiet, steady. It doesn't escalate dramatically. It just sits there, consistent, like that low hum underneath everything else. The second possibility is that you're genuinely picking up on something Something in the environment, something in another person, something. And let's just talk about how space holds energy. Some situations carry residue. Some people are presenting one thing while they're carrying something else entirely. That can be true. And sensitive people whose systems are calibrated to pick up on that subtlety are going to feel that. This isn't fringe. This isn't something to apologize for or to explain away. It is a real form of perception. And for people who experience it regularly, having a language for it, having someone just say, yes, that's a real thing, can be genuinely relieving. The third possibility is that the feeling is coming from inside your own system. And it's not actually about what's in front of you. It's more about old experiences that are leaving imprints. If you've been in situations before that felt unsafe or unpredictable or where things were not as they seemed, your body remembers that. And sometimes it applies that memory to new situations that have a similar texture, even when the current situation is just fine. This isn't a flaw. It's your system trying to protect you based on what it knows. But it does mean that not every something feels off is about the room that you're standing in. Sometimes it's about a room you stood in a long time ago. And the honest answer, the one I always want to tell people, is that it can be any of these or more than one at once. The feeling doesn't always come with a clear source, and that's okay. You don't have to diagnose it to work with it. So when something feels off, what do you actually do with it? Here's the concept. Stay with it before you story it. Most of us jump very quickly from sensation to narrative. Something feels off, and within about 30 seconds, we're building a case for it. We're deciding what it means, who's responsible, what we should do about it. And that story, built fast, built on incomplete information, often takes on a life of its own. The practice here is just to slow that gap down. Stay in that feeling a little bit longer before you hand it over to your mind to interpret it. So here's a few ways to work with that, depending on how you are wired. If you tend to feel things physically, when that off feeling arrives, put your attention in your body and just locate it. We're not analyzing anything. I'm not asking you to do that. Just find it. Like, where is that feeling sitting? Is it in your chest or is it in your stomach? Is it in your throat? Is it moving? Is it still? Is it warm? Is it cool? You're not looking for those answers. You're just getting curious about the physical experience of the feeling itself. What often happens is the act of paying attention to it without immediately trying to fix or interpret it gives you more information than any story you could build around it. The body knows things. Give it a moment to finish speaking before your mind takes over. If you tend to process things through thinking, try separating the observation from the interpretation. Like on one side, that let's say what you actually noticed, the shift in the room, the thing someone said or didn't say, the space felt when you walked in. On the other side, what are you trying to make it mean? Keep those two things separate for as long as you can. What you noticed is data. What you're making it mean is a theory. Both of them matter, but they're not the same thing. And treating them as separate helps you stay honest about what you actually know versus what you're constructing. And if you tend to need to move or do something with an experience, give yourself permission to act on the feeling in a small, contained type way. Because you get to decide what it means ultimately. Step outside for a minute. Create a little physical distance from whatever triggered the feeling. Not to avoid it, just to give yourself a neutral reference point. Sometimes what felt overwhelming inside of a room feels much more manageable with a little space around it. And from that slightly more neutral space, you can ask yourself, is this still here? Because the things that are genuinely worth paying attention to tend to follow you out of that room. The things that were just situational, they'll tend to lift away. And here's what I want you to know about this feeling in the context of real life. You don't have to act on it immediately. None of us do. You also don't have to explain it to anybody else. And you don't have to make any decisions based on it, at least not in that moment. What you do have to do, the only thing really, is not override it before you've given it a fair amount of attention. Because the most common mistake people make with this feeling isn't that they trust it too much. It's that they talk themselves out of it too fast. They feel something off, and then they immediately start building a case for why it's probably nothing. They look for evidence that everything is fine. They tell themselves they're being too sensitive, too suspicious, too much. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes it is nothing. But sometimes weeks or even months later, they think back and realize they knew. And they didn't let themselves know. You're allowed to hold a feeling without acting on it and without dismissing it. That middle space where you just let something be present while you gather more information. That's actually where intuition does its best work. Trust, it doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be honest. And you're allowed to hold space to get more information. I'll see you next time on More Than We See.